Okay. I will call to order the regularly scheduled Concord Township Board of Trustees meeting for Wednesday, May 2nd. Please join Mike Lucas in the Pledge of Allegiance. Former Eagle Scout.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Luda?
Here.
Mr. Melchesky?
Present.
Mr. Galloway?
Here. All right. We have meeting minutes. There is regular trustees meeting on the 4th, and then there are 2 public hearing and regular trustees meeting from April 18th. Any changes or modifications?
I have one correction for the 18th trustee meeting, and that is the spelling of Page Drive. It's P-A-G-E. Take out the I.
Paul, anything?
No, I'm going to abstain from the April 4th ones, and I will vote in affirmative for the April 18th.
Okay, I will do the opposite and approve the April 4th and abstain from the April 18th. Let the record reflect that. Those minutes are approved. That brings us into the elected official reports. Mr. Rose, in light of Ms. Dawson's absence, if you would give the fiscal officer report.
I'd be happy to. Thank you, Mr. Galloway. The treasurer's report for today, as of April 30th, we were 33% of the way through the calendar year. The treasury balance for the 19 active funds within the township treasury was $6.1 million. The treasury balance includes $757,744 in funds set aside for specific projects. Year-to-date expenditures were 27% of the amount appropriated, and revenue is at 51% received for 2018, so we are within budget. And continuing the cemetery sexton's report, we invite you to join us for a brief ceremony honoring our veterans and those who have passed before us at noon on Memorial Day, Monday, May 28th, 2018, at the Concord Township Cemetery on Route 608. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to call our office at 354-7516. This concludes the report, sir.
Trustees, Paul.
I dealt with mostly stormwater issues in the last couple of days, which I will talk to Mr. Rose about, because he's meeting with stormwater tomorrow. I got about 3 or 4 of them.
Nothing to report.
I was, along with Andy and some of our other staff, was honored to be at the Lake County Bar Association Law Day yesterday, where you were the Liberty Bell Award winner, and no greater defender of the Constitution than Connie Luda, so I think well deserved.
Thank you.
And then our own Michael Lucas winning the President's Award from the Bar Association.
Right.
As Commissioner
Thank you very much.
As Commissioner Troy quipped, it was Concord Appreciation Day. And it was a real pleasure to be there, and I'm so thrilled for both of you.
Thank you.
Well deserved.
Thank you.
I do have one item that Ms. Dawson asked me to read. It came into the fiscal officer from John Husted, Ohio Secretary of State, as it relates to the election, and she asked if I would read this letter today for our residents. Dear Township Officer, for the upcoming May 8th, 2018 primary election, Ohio voters will decide a number of local issues and races. Ohioans will also have the chance to vote on a statewide ballot issue. Issue 1, proposed constitutional amendment, creates a bipartisan public process for drawing congressional districts. As Secretary of State and Chairman of the Ohio Ballot Board, I want to ensure information about this important issue is available and accessible to all Ohio voters, and I'm seeking your help in this endeavor. The 2018 State Issues Report, which includes the official ballot language, explanation, arguments for and against, and the full text of the issue, is now posted prominently on my office's website at www.ohiosecretaryofstate.gov. Click on the Know Your Ballot Issue button on the home page. The website is also a resource for information on absentee voting, voting early in person, and election day procedures. I encourage you to direct interested voters to this webpage and, if possible, to include a link to the 2018 State Issues Report on your own website. For your convenience, you can use this Issues Report widget. Must have been something attached. Simply copy and paste the code to create a custom button, yada, yada, yada. Please share. So, the rest of it's all related to social media. So just so everybody knows that if you are interested in the issue 1, that'll be on Tuesday, May 8th election, you can find information on it at the Ohio Secretary of State's website, which is, again, ohiosecretarystate.gov. So there's that. Okay. That's going to bring us into department reports. Administration, Mr. Rose.
Thank you, Mr. Galloway. I continue to plug in, meet with various organizations and offices in Concord and Lake County, along with touring the various neighborhoods throughout our township. Had a nice meeting this morning with all of the Lake County Township administrators. We were also joined by the county administrator. I'll be meeting later this week with Lake Metro Parks, Lake County Stormwater, and also with the superintendent of Riverside Schools. Of note, we would like to welcome our new business, Drug Mart, which is located at 8023 Cryle Road. We'd like to thank them for their investment in our community, and we wish them great success. That concludes my report.
Thank you, sir. Next up is Fire Department Chief Sabo.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
For the month of April, the fire department went on 202 incidents, bringing our year-to-date to 832. In April, we went on 141 EMS events with 112 transports to area hospitals. We had 61 fire events, including 1 vehicle fire and 2 building fires. We had 8 hazardous conditions not involving fire, 33 service calls, 8 good intent calls, and 9 false alarms or false calls. We provided mutual aid to neighboring communities 18 times and received mutual aid 16 times. In the month of April, we had 57 overlapping calls, so that's where we're going on at least 2 at a time, which accounts for a little over 28% of those runs for April. The Fire Prevention Bureau stayed busy with 4 plan reviews, 32 annual inspections, 10 follow-up inspections, and 30 fire protection system testings. For the month of May, we want to remind everyone, and we posted this on the newsletter, it's the time for spring cleaning, and Frank Kraska will have some additional information in regards to that, but remember that there is no open burning permitted in Concord Township. Recreational fires, such as cooking and campfires, are permitted as long as they meet the following parameters. They must be in an approved container or cleared area. Fire should not be conducted within 25 feet of a structure or combustible material, which means to remove the leaves and the debris from around the area prior to starting the fire. The fire should not exceed 3 feet in diameter or 2 feet in height. And you can only burn seasoned firewood, no garbage, trash, construction materials, and anything like that.
Define seasoned.
A year usually is when it's dried out. Be ready to put out the fire. Always have a minimum of 1 portable fire extinguisher with a minimum 4A rating, or other fire extinguishing equipment on site, such as dirt, water, sand, water barrel, or garden hose. And all recreational fires should be constantly attended until the fire is extinguished. We also ask that you be considerate of your neighbors. If you are having a authorized recreational fire and it's causing a nuisance such as smoke blowing towards a neighbor's house, we'll ask you to extinguish the fire. See the fire department frequently asked questions on the Concord Township website for more information. And we also noted that yesterday, the western part of the state was under a burning ban. We do recommend that you wait until this dry season is through. Usually this is the worst time of the year. A lot of the vegetation is dry. Wouldn't appear so, but it can travel quickly. We've been busy with grass fires lately, so please be careful. If you have any questions, give us a call.
Hey, Chief,
Sure.
so you got this, why we have you up there, you got this super blanket certificate number 143-2018 for $30,000 for outfitting the new rescue pumper at Harrisburg Fire Expo. You'll be heading there, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right, so I'd make a motion that we adopt that PO.
It's a super blanket.
Super blanket.
One-
Second.
Yeah, I'm sorry, super blanket.
Yeah, let the record reflect that super blanket certificate 143-2018. I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And then I would move to adopt the PO 35-2018 for $7,746 for the breathing air system upgrade. That's SCBA air compressor.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And then additionally, motion to adopt the fire department PO number 36-2018 for $25,800 for Warren Fire Equipment for helmet and fire gear replacement.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, that brings us to Service Department. Mr. Frank Kraska.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Congratulations, Connie.
Thank you.
Mike.
Thank you
for
very
your
much.
achievements. Hello, fellow residents. It's nice to have a crowd at one of our meetings. Anyways, on Friday, April 27th, the Concord Service Department coordinated an Arbor Day recognition ceremony, which was supported by Concord trustees and administration. Charles Tubasing, plants coordinator for the Holton Arboretum, for the second year in a row, donated a tree for the township to plant in conjunction with our activity. The tree planting took place near our soccer field on Concord-Hamden Road and was attended by Trustee Connie Luta, Administrator Andy Rose, members of our community, and the Concord Garden Club. Service Department crews this week have been repairing right-of-way areas along side streets where snowplow damage has occurred over the past winter. Concord residents can contact our department at 440-350-3225 if they recognize an area that may have been overlooked. Simultaneously, we've also dispatched a crew for the last 2 weeks to check all of our side streets for any pothole or pavement degradation that needed immediate repair. This activity is still carrying on. We do have several more roads that we have to go through, and that will go on through the rest of this week. The first two major Concord Township road improvement projects is well underway. On Hunting Lake Drive, where Pacheco Cement and Company has been contracted by the township to replace nearly 4,000 square yards of concrete sections that were in failing condition. This project was started in some less than kind weather, though it has progressed fairly well, and we should see its completion during the week of May 7th, if not sooner. Many thanks to the residents of this area who showed extraordinary patience with the many inconveniences that comes with a project of this magnitude. The reward is much improved. The reward for this is a much improved road surface. Tomorrow morning, the Service Department will have a pre-construction meeting planned for our second project, which will resurface roads located in the Mount Royal subdivision. Details on the schedule for this improvement project will be broadcast on our media sources once they have been established. Okay, so we all welcome spring's arrival this week. A+ for sure. You all have been out cleaning up your yards, picking up sticks, perhaps cutting your grass for the first time. Well, perfect timing. The first brush and yard waste drop-off is scheduled for this Saturday, May 5th, starting at 8 a.m. and running until 2 p.m. in the afternoon. The Township Service Department will have personnel on hand to assist residents at the Service Department located behind the Ball Diamond at 7229 Ravenna Road. Department employees will help offload brush and yard waste as you arrive at the collection center. Brush dropped off will be chipped and made available to residents on a first-come, first-served basis. Yard waste is collected and taken to a local recycle center for reuse. Only limbs, twigs, and branches no greater than 6 inches in diameter will be accepted. Small branches and twigs should be bundled in biodegradable twine or string that can be chipped. Yard waste will only be accepted in biodegradable bags or small containers that can be dumped. No tree stumps, pallets, contaminated materials, or processed wood such as lumber or railroad ties are accepted. For further details, please visit our township website for regular updates, current events, and related information. In closing, Concord is one of the most picturesque areas in Lake County due in part to its lush green landscape and rolling hills. As a community, help maintain this beauty by considering planting new trees, bushes, and evergreens that follow suit with our Arbor Day initiative. Once again, the Service Department wishes all of our residents well, and thank you for your continued support of our efforts. Thank you.
While Frank is up there, we have a couple POs here. I'd move for adoption of Service Department PO 37-2018. This is $15,000 for North Coast Products for rapid set emulsion. This is the emulsion we use for our Durapatch.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Additionally, there's some repairs to Barchester Park. Is that correct?
Park, yeah.
And
There's
I'd
a typo there.
move for a Service Department PO 38-2018 for $15,000 initial construction for those repairs to the park.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
That'll be for the walking path around the park.
Yeah.
It needs to be repaved.
Thank you, Frank.
You're welcome, man. Good evening.
Okay, next up is zoning department.
Good evening.
Evening.
So during the month of April, the zoning department approved 37 zoning permit applications and collected approximately $8,600 in fees. Of those 37 permits, 11 were for decks, 7 fences, 6 pools, 3 accessory buildings, 3 residential additions, 2 single-family dwellings, 2 wall signs, 1 change in use, 1 new commercial building, which was for the Holiday Inn Express, and 1 commercial building addition, which is going to be the addition where Concord Motorsports is, where the hardware store is going to be moving down further down Cryle Road. Also, last night, the zoning commission met and they scheduled a public hearing for June 2nd for a zoning map amendment application that was submitted to rezone a portion of property on Cryle Road from R2 PUD to BX. Information regarding this request will be made available later on the township website. Additionally, the Board of Zoning Appeals will meet next Wednesday evening at Town Hall at 7 p.m. for their regularly scheduled meeting. They have 2 variance request applications that will be in front of them. The agenda for that and meeting packet may be found on the township website under the public meetings page. Feel free to contact our department if you have any questions about any of these matters or any other zoning related questions. That's it.
Stay right there,
Sounds
because
good.
I'm going to pull the vote up on the zoning amendment.
Mr. Chairman, in sometime in, it's like April, February, there was an application by Mr. Summers for a zoning text, it appears to be a zoning text amendment. That zoning text amendment then went to the Lake County Planning Commission sometime coming back to us on March 28th of 2018. Then that zoning text amendment went to the Planning Commission.
Zoning Commission, rather.
I'm sorry, Zoning Commission, and it was approved in the Lake County Planning Commission. There was an approval of 5 ayes and 0 nays for the zoning amendment application number 0218-2 by Richard Summers of Summers Real Estate Group to amend the zoning resolution text in section XXII, which is section 22. Then we had a public hearing regarding that matter at our last meeting, which was April 18th, and by law, we have to vote on that within 20 days, which is set for today, because I don't think we'll make it to our next meeting.
Nope.
Set a special meeting. Because that went to the Planning Commission, and because it went to the Zoning Commission, and it was approved All votes have to be taken in the affirmative, so a motion for the approval of the zoning amendment application 0218-2 by Richard Summers of Summer Real Estate Group to the amended zoning resolution text in section 22, Roman numeral 22. I so move.
As recommended by the zoning commission.
As recommended by the zoning commission.
I'll second that.
All right, so
Would you like a roll call vote, sir?
no, wait, we're gonna have discussion amongst the board. All right, so there is a motion and a second on the zoning amendment application. I do appreciate you both allowing this for me to be here for this vote. And since I was not able to attend the last trustee meeting.
Excuse me, Mr. Galloway.
Excuse me,
We
shh.
can't hear in the back.
You can't hear?
We can't hear back here. Could you speak louder?
Sure, okay. Mr. Malcheski has made a motion to approve the recommendation from the zoning commission. Mrs. Luda has seconded that motion, and so that is before the board. And that is the zoning amendment application 0218-2 by Mr. Summers. I'm going to allow discussion amongst the board now on the matter.
I think it's kind of important to note what is, what's permitted or conditional in that property. So those properties allow for the properties that in question in that text as well as that map suggests that medical and dental offices, administrative businesses and professional offices, restaurants, table services, restaurants and counter services, personal services including but not limited to hair care, dry cleaning, shoe repair, photography studios, etc., bed and breakfasts, business services including mailing and copying centers, child and adult care centers, residential care facilities, nursing homes and homes for the aging, hospice care facilities used for the care of hospice patients only, surface extraction, sand, gravel, or other earth materials, outside dining, child and adult daycare, and then there's various accessory uses that may come with those uses that are for the town hall neighborhood. And I think it's kind of important that we kind of note those things, because as we kind of go through these decisions, you kind of need to make sure that you're aware of what is already could occur, and additional text allowing additional uses should be in some consideration of that. Additionally, we have two unique sections of the town hall comments. There's what I would consider a south portion and a north portion. The north portion abuts the freeway. We have some unusual terrain there. There is R1 uses, which means residential uses to the east. To the west, you have some limited commercial uses, and then on the on the southern portion of it, it abuts the Quail Hollow neighborhood. You have condominiums that are, I believe, 8 units per acre close by. You have other units of condominiums, 3 acres close by. To the rear of that, you have single-family homes, all part of a PUD of Quail Hollow. There is going through some, I guess comments or issues that I've received. I've gotten phone calls, I've gotten emails, So here are some of my concerns regarding some of those points that were put in there. Regardless of what goes in there, there's going to be some traffic. Any property that was once vacant, now occupied, will be trafficked. Mrs. Spear, who resided on the south portion, obviously was a residential home right by the entrance of the Quill Hollow entrance. The concerns about whether it's commercial use or residential use, I guess some of my concerns are, it wasn't too long ago that we had an application here across the street that they were looking for a commercial use. I think it was an ice cream store, hot dog stand, you know, kind of a quaint little thing that was obviously grave concern to the Quail Hollow development, because I was there. We've had several discussions regarding that. I think we've worked out several discussions with the potential business owner and property owner, along with the who at that time was representing the homeowners association. The end result of it is it was never got built, but there was a lot of agitation for having, you know, what I consider fairly light commercial use of that property, which gives me some pause. Issues that I always have concern with is that we just did a stormwater project right down Hunting Lake that captures a lot of water that was flooding out Waterford Lane, Hunter's Trail, and so that project was originally going to be $300,000, then it was $400,000, then it was $500,000. I think it ended up being close to the $900,000 in just stormwater projects. And so I always get concerned about stormwater issues. And I think there was some discussions with at our public hearing that at least two residents are concerned about, water in the backyard. Always a concern for me, because we don't want to create other problems. I also get concerns that obviously the footprint of any type of commercial establishment compared to, a footprint of an assisted living facility compared to a footprint of a residential home or residential homes there, whether they're 3 per acre, is something that you have to kind of weigh. And I've always believed that we have more runoff on commercial property than we have on residential property. Stormwater department determines that, because if you got commercial property owners pay higher stormwater rates. So that needs to be balanced and weighed. With regards to commercial property in Concord Township. Commercial property, and again, I come from the standpoint of what I believe is law, is that generally, from the general purpose, that residential property is the first and best use of land, subject to where it may be. And that means that there are certain places where residential property just won't work. There are certain places where commercial property just won't work, and you have to deviate from that determination. The unique thing about Concord Township and what it has done in the last 8 years is that we have taken commercial property and made a commercial corridor. We incentivized it and placed what is a JED in there. And just because something is commercial doesn't mean it's more valuable. Just because it's residential doesn't mean it's just more valuable. Although there is that, that fundamental principle. But I think what's unique in our corridor is that we have commercial property that can be built up a little bit more than in residential areas. It comes with a joint economic development district tax that changes that calculation of commercial property to really economic generation. It becomes that division of I guess, responsible development. The other concern I always have, and you always discuss it, is road pavement. You know, my concerns always are how long these roads are. In any commercial development, we have passed some time ago the ability for us to have conservation development. And the purpose of that conservation development was that we believe that if we can incentivize a developer to build a shorter road, it is less burden on the township later on when we have to make repairs to that road, replace that road. And so I wanted some discussion, or at least to kind of outline some of those points which I consider, you know, talking points that should be weighed as we come into our decision on this matter. You know, one of the things with regards to, there's some discussion about traffic, but one of the things about traffic that we learned in our discussions with the Riverside school system is that you know, that's a state route out there. The traffic is going to be significant because the school is low on 608, but it appears to be not a factor for both the state nor I guess a legal review, although it certainly is always probably a factor for our consideration. And I think it makes a difference. I think if a residential property, maybe not so much traffic. A restaurant, going to have a lot of traffic.
To your point, it depends on what the commercial use is.
Absolutely.
We'll determine what the traffic is.
And we never know what we're going to get. You know,
Well, other than what's in our table.
other than what's in our table.
Right.
Nothing further right now.
Connie, do you have any comments?
No, other than the fact that commercial does generate more traffic usually.
Yeah, I have some thoughts on all of this as well. I think they're similar to yours.
Yeah.
First is, I mean, when I look at this application, and let me make clear to those at home, this application is in front of the Board of Trustees because an application was submitted by Mr. Summers on February 24th. This is the end of that process. There's been some communiques flying around that sort of try to insinuate that this is somehow either trustee initiated or somehow a trustee scheme or plan. Trustees did not initiate this. Any person who owns property or has a business or is a resident can submit an application for a zoning text amendment.
Right.
And that process has been followed legally, and that's why it went, as Mr. Malczewski previously outlined, it started with the Planning Commission, with their public meetings, and then it went to the Zoning Commission and their public hearings and public meetings, and now it's before the Board of Trustees. So I find insinuations otherwise to be a bit disingenuous. But I start with the Town Hall neighborhood and history and why we did Town Hall neighborhood, why we created that years ago, almost a decade ago. And that was to try to soften some of the uses in this area. And because this was previously zoned commercial, and it still is zoned commercial, but Town Hall neighborhood was created as an effort to be more of a softer commercial use between the Quail Hollow PUD, which is a rather dense PUD.
It's the densest part of Concord Township.
The manufacturing to the west, the highway to the north, the B2 business district that is properties that are zoned to the east. The idea was to create that, and of course Town Hall Commons were created to try to create a zoning classification that allowed some softer commercial uses that would transition and blend well into the residential in the area. And I think that the goals behind that were correct. and I think that they were primarily successful. Now, no one really knows because we haven't had any
That's correct.
projects come forward as it relates to any of this property in Town Hall Commons, Town Hall neighborhood, and frankly, even really in the B2 along Ravenna Road. But just for the record, so everybody understands, that area between the bike path north to I-90, through this stretch of Ravenna, and then on either side of 608, between the bike path and then down almost to where the 608 bends at the highway, that's all zoned commercial. So I try to look at the application as it relates to that, you know, and what does it fit within what we were attempting to do, because it is a departure from the town hall neighborhood history. It is, you know, residential by itself does not stick out. If zoning amendment was, a text amendment, sorry, was approved, the residential by itself would not stick out because there's high density residential all around this. That said, we come back to best uses of land. We come back to, you know, what we feel the best uses are of those properties. As an example, I mean, I voted no on the rezone of the parcel to R1. Was it a month or two ago? When the applicant was here before us, and I did so because I didn't think it should be spot zoned out, and I lost that vote. It is what it is. I thought it should have remained in the town hall neighborhood district. I think that when I look at this, and Mr. Summers has provided I guess there's somewhere along the way there was maybe it was from the Planning Commission, there was a little drawing of a possible, what it would look like on the Spear property on the south, based on the zoning text that he has proposed. You know, the interesting thing about this application and Mr. Summers' activity is we rediscovered that there is a historical cemetery on that property in the southeast corner of the property. And so I think to myself, okay, currently, and you listed all the commercial uses that could be used on this property, the historical nature of that cemetery, along with some of those commercial uses, probably wouldn't be terribly proper now that we know that it's there, or we would have to be very sensitive to it, I think, in terms of a future development plan of a commercial property. In addition, I think of the Quail Hollow folks, just on the communications that I've seen from some of them. You know, I understand the desire to have nothing happen behind one's home. I also remember the discussion that we had over here with Mr. Zappatelli's desire to want to create an ice cream shop, seasonal hot dog, whatever it was he was thinking of. That was a soft commercial use that was adamantly opposed by folks in Quail. So my question, you know, I think to myself is, okay, we don't want commercial, we don't want residential. Something has to be aligned there. It seems to me that on the Spear property, a residential, and I'm not endorsing this, but I'm saying a soft residential use would probably be preferable to residents than the potential of a plaza with loading docks and dumpsters and things of that nature and floodlights. And I base that on the fact that I've sat in this room and had other conversations with residents in Quail about commercial developments that being opposed to them.
Sure.
So from that standpoint, Mr. Summers' project on its face value seems like a softer potential use in that property with less stormwater impact, versus what a commercial development would be with all the impervious, potential impervious surface space for parking lots and things of that nature. But that being said, I would also say that this is not a rezone of that Spear property. This is a zoning text amendment. And that zoning text amendment affects the entire town hall neighborhood. And I think when extended over to the north side of that, the properties on the north side of Concord Hamden, that does create a whole different scenario as it relates to usage. The property on the north side seems much more applicable to those soft commercial uses as outlined in our town hall neighborhood text. Now, there are still no actual projects for that property in front of us, or we have seen of any kind. So that's certainly residential, even if the text is added, does not guarantee that that property would be developed as any sort of residential use, because those commercial uses would still remain. So somebody would be able to do now any of those items within the zoning text. That said, it would seem that the market right now is driving in this area residential uses, since we all know that we have not had much in the way of commercial requests in property in this quarter, other than the, outside of Mr. Zapatelli's interest, the storage unit interest that was a couple years ago down here on one of the B2 properties, which was rejected by the BZA, rightfully so. So I think, you know, there's double-edged sword in this text. I do think the stormwater impact would be less with a residential development than, say, some of those commercial developments that you outlined, Paul.
I think one of the biggest commercial developments that if there is going to be something, and what we do hear often is these residential care facilities or hospice care facilities, something in that type of commercial nature that,
And there have been inquiries in the past
those are, well,
about those very uses.
you saw what was over there in Capitol Park, over by Capitol Parkway, in Vista Springs.
Yeah.
It's, something like that, which is significantly bright. And a lot of asphalt.
We do know there have been inquiries in the past on both the Osborne and Spear properties from the assisted living,
Yes.
skilled nursing, all those types of, looking at those properties for those potential uses. None have come to pass, but there have been inquiries in the past.
The attraction of those over here in that area is because of the fire department.
Right.
Fire department's here. It makes it a quick transition from the fire station, the facility, to the hospital. And that's where those inquiries come from.
I do want to address this, some of the things in this email that went out. Just really quick, saying trustees will increase taxes if this is improved. Trustees don't increase taxes. Taxes in townships are always voted on by the people, and a 9-acre development certainly would not have an impact on, be it commercial or residential, on having some massive tax increase pressure as is insinuated in this email. Again, I would reiterate, it's not our initiative. The traffic numbers that are in here are not necessarily accurate, because it would really depend on what the commercial uses would be, which would determine what those commercial traffic uses would be. There's a comment in here about the backs of homes showing, which would be, I guess, ugly, as it was quoted. I would point out that the Quail Hollow, or the adjacent Quail Hollow condo development, or remember that, is it condos? I guess it's condos. And the R3 that's right next door has properties that back up to Concord Hamden, so that's not something that's not unheard of along there. There's an issue in here that says the trustees are trying to rationalize. We're not trying to do anything of such a sort in terms of losing commercial property. Again, it's not our initiative. I would just... So, I've reviewed everything in terms of the application and the public hearing and the minutes and all that. And there. Was there a motion?
There's a motion, there's a second, and we're in the middle of
I
our
thought there
discussion.
was. Okay. So what I'm going to do is, if there's any other discussion on the matter,
No, you've said all,
I know
You
but
said it all.
but I feel like this is something that we need to have,
Right.
items on the record as to why
Absolutely.
and how and what people are thinking as it relates to how they may or may not vote. So I will go ahead and call this vote. I'll need a roll call, please. Mr. Rose?
Yes, sir. Mrs. Luda?
yes.
Mr. Melchesky?
No.
Mr. Galloway?
No. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, not approved, 2-1.
It's going to move us into new business.
Well, you've got
Get rec
Rec
department.
Department and Concord Law.
Oh, I skipped right over them. I'm sorry, Deb. Rec Department, what good things do we have going on?
Lots. Good evening, everybody. Welcome, Andy. Congratulations, Connie and Mike, and hey there, guys. I am happy to report that the Concord Township Recreation Department is offering residents an enjoyable variety of classes and events this May. We've got a pound exercise class with weighted drumsticks on Monday evenings, martial arts on Tuesdays and Thursday evenings, learn how to create a stained glass art heart-shaped sun catcher or keepsake box on Tuesday evenings, or relax and simply have fun in our Get Calm and Color On class on Tuesday mornings. Take Tai Chi classes on Wednesday evenings, learn to jitterbug with the triple step swing classes also on Wednesday evenings. Kids will enjoy the next cooking class, picnics and parties on May 14th, and the Kids Summer Art Camp begins the week of May 29th. To sign up for a class, go to concordtwp.com and click on the Community Recreation Registration link or call the Recreation Department for assistance. Earlier this afternoon, our 55-plus group painted poppy masterpieces during our popular Paint and Punch gathering, sponsored by the Concord Village Skilled Nursing and Rehabilitation. Our next 55-plus group gathering is all about moms. Our annual Mother's Day tea will be held on Wednesday, May 16th, where ladies will be treated to a royal high tea, and the Sweet Adelines will serenade our guests. The Library Book Club continues to meet at the Community Center the third Wednesday of the month. This month's book selection is Saving C.C. Honeycutt by Beth Hoffman. Copies of this book are available for loan from the Community Center, so just stop by to pick one up. And May 19th is all about weddings. If you're attending the royal wedding of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle at St. George's Chapel in Windsor Castle, then dilly dilly. But if you're in town on Saturday, May 19th, then stop by the Community Center for the We Thee Wed bridal resale event at the Concord Community Center from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. and peruse gently used wedding and reception supplies from recently married couples. And brides may even find the dress of their dreams for only $50. The Old Stone School will be open on Sunday, May 27th from 3 to 5 p.m. for free guided tours. It's worth adding this experience to your Memorial Day weekend plans and get a first-hand view of Concord's early days. The Old Stone School serves as Concord's historical museum with fascinating displays about the farms and early business of our township. And be sure to save the date of August 11th for Concord Community Day. Planning is underway, and if you'd like to be involved, we'd love to hear from you. Applications for parade participants, Citizen of the Year nominations, and Community Day scholarships are available on our website, at the Community Center, and also at Town Hall on the little rack outside. Concord Township's Bicentennial Planning Committee met on April 18th to begin discussions on our township's bicentennial celebration in 2022. The meeting yielded a plethora of creative and exciting ways to celebrate our upcoming milestone. And the next meeting is scheduled for June 20th at the Old Stone School. Look for the summer 2018 edition of the Concord Grapevine in your mailbox this week. It's packed with information from township departments and includes the Recreation Department summer class schedule, as well as the summer concert series lineup and the Concord Community Day schedule right on the front page. Be sure to read this edition from cover to cover and stick it on the fridge. It's a keeper. Check your email inboxes for the May edition of Concord Township's monthly electronic news blast, the e-Grapevine, this Friday. It contains township information you may find helpful specifically for the month of May. You can sign up to receive the e-Grapevine at concordtwp.com or simply call the Recreation Department and we'll help you through it. And I am happy to report that the telephone issues that we've been experiencing at the community center have been resolved. We upgraded our internet service plan, and our internet speed significantly improved. It went from about 1.2 megabits per second to over 100, and it made all the difference in the world. So thank you for your patience as we had this issue resolved. We are good to go. So more information, if you need more information on the Recreation Department, please contact us at 440-639-4650 or visit concordtwp.com. Thank you.
Thanks, Deb. Concord Law Enforcement.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm here to report on the calls for service and activities that the Sheriff's Office handled in the month of April. There was 1,376 calls for service handled by the Sheriff's Office. Those included 3 injury accidents, 13 property damage accidents. Arrests that we had included an adult male arrest for OVI, a juvenile male arrest for domestic violence, a juvenile female arrest for domestic violence, an adult male arrest for disorderly conduct, an adult male arrest for OVI again, an adult male arrest for domestic violence, and an adult male arrest for domestic violence. We had 287 crime prevention cards, 227 citations were issued, 105 written warnings, 3 driving under suspension, 3 operating a motor vehicle while intoxicated. We had 1 assault that we handled, 2 burglaries, 5 drug complaints, 2 sex offenses, 11 theft incidents, and 2 vandalism. And my words of wisdom for everybody is that the weather's going to be getting nice here. Keep your cars locked up, keep your valuables out of the vehicles, because in these dark neighborhoods it only takes a few minutes for someone to rifle through a number of cars, and if they're unlocked, you only make it easier for them. That's all I have for you.
Thank you, Lieutenant.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, audience portion. Depending on the volume, I might limit it to, but, come on.
Hello, I'm John Pesic of 11705 Cali Court. I want to report that I'm pleased with the outcome of the vote and encouraged by the thoughtfulness that went into the discussion and the decision. I would like some clarification from the trustees about the value of commercial property. Mr. Malcheski had some things to say about commercial property having lots of stormwater issue, traffic, not much in the way of tax revenue. And so I'd like to hear what your feelings are. I know in general the wisdom is it's important to have commercial property in successful neighborhoods and successful communities, and one of the big examples is Beechwood, which has done a great job of managing residential development and commercial development in a way that gives their community lots of money to do lots of good things, and at the same time have plenty of happy homeowners. So the more you can do to clarify for us your position on that, it would be helpful. Thank you.
Good evening. Ron Glebe, 7223 Honey Lake Drive. Again, I want to thank the trustees for their vote. It's been a concern of ours. We've sent emails. We've been at other meetings. You know our concerns. Apparently, you've addressed those concerns. I had a couple of notes. I guess those notes now are a moot point. Thank you very much. I'm hoping that that property can still be developed, that is, in a workable situation for all concerned. Thank you.
Denise Brewster, 7207 Alexander Road.
I wanted to first thank you for the vote. I really enjoyed hearing your thought process, and it really sparked some ideas. I actually had a conversation earlier today with one of the trustees about, you know, making this a win-win and trying to find ways that our quail neighbors, if they prefer residential, that there's a way around that without having the high density. So maybe we can work toward something like that. In the meantime, I just wanted to comment that the baseball field is in spectacular shape. I've never seen it in better shape. And, but I do know we have a shortage of fields, and I wondered, are there plans to add some more next year? So I just, if that can be addressed at some point. And then the historical cemetery, if you could provide the residents some more information, that sounded pretty interesting, what's involved. Because this is the first time I'm hearing it, and is it something we need to protect? Okay. And then, let's see, just to continue to work toward responsible zoning and you know, making sure residents are heard, and I appreciate being heard. Thank you.
You don't have to raise your hand. You can just come on up. It's not school.
I'm Jeanette Dalbane, 11411 Labrador Lane. I was very surprised to hear that there is that little cemetery area there. I don't know if it's possible or how it would work, but maybe the trustees could think about buying Betty Spears' property, making the cemetery as a focal point, and using that as a park area. We've got the gazebo, we've got some of the soccer fields, we've got the baseball field, but maybe you could consider, and I don't know what it would cost, I don't know if it would be feasible, but possibly the township purchasing this area and turning it into a township park featuring that cemetery there with maybe a bocce court, or I don't know exactly what the configuration would be, but maybe something of that nature would resolve the issue of that property there that does have some water problems, is quite narrow, some ecological problems there, and in light, and I think a lot of the people here today were quite surprised to find out there was a historical cemetery there. So maybe that could be considered.
Thank
So
you.
thank you.
Anybody else? Nope. Okay.
Yes.
May I?
Yeah, I would address them too.
Oh, sure. Come on down.
It's now your duty to adjust the microphone, sorry. Thank you. Vanessa Pesic, 11705 Cali Court. Thank you very much for the thoughtful discussion and the vote. I know that the Zoning Commission had put on pause their discussion of the town hall neighborhood and potential rezoning of that area. And I would ask that maybe instead of doing it in that formal setting where they do have an audience portion after they've had their discussion, that instead we actually put together a small committee of people who would like to be part of that committee, especially those who are in the area and who would be affected by zoning of these two properties. Paul, you suggested some of those uses might not be appropriate. Maybe we should separate the two parcels out and do something differently with one versus another. Maybe we should take one of the uses out that might create a huge amount of noise or problems. There's lots of different things that we should do, but I suggest that we put together a committee and that we use data and economic analysis to really see what does the township need in terms of revenue when it's built out, not just now, but when everything is all built out, and take a look at what some of the uses might be and everything, but work together as a community in an open forum as opposed to trying to do it through the zoning commission and then having some audience participation at the end. It would be much more useful to have interactive discussions, especially with those people who would be affected. Thank you.
Thank you. Going once, going twice. To answer first gentleman's question, my position on commercial development has been very clear. I know I was happy to see I was quoted repeatedly in here as to the value of commercial development in the email that went out. As I have said all along, we have about 8% of our township is zoned commercial, and that we need to maximize it so that we have balance in our tax revenue. That's always been my position. Commercial development, you use Beechwood. I like to use Independence as an example. Concord's never going to have that level of commercial development within our community. We don't have that much commercial footprint. But in order to have long-term sustained balance in our tax revenues, it's wise to have maximizing our commercial development where it exists. Although I did feel in this case that potentially the Spear property would benefit maybe better with a residential use. It wasn't a rezone of that particular parcel, it was zoning text amendment, which affects all parcels under that zoning text. And one thing I would say, Ron, to your comments is, I just, for folks in Quail, we have, it may, things along these two corridors, whether it's 608 or Ravenna, undoubtedly over time there'll be more and more things that will come forward. There are always things here and there that people, whether it's a nursing home or in this case a zoning text for residential, or Mr. Zappatelli with a ice cream shop. People want to, occasionally they look at this area. It's not hot in terms of commercial interest. It's just not, because it doesn't meet what most commercial entities are looking for in terms of traffic and location, despite what some think there's really no traffic on either, especially on Ravenna, that works to generate for what most commercial developments are looking for. So I think, right now the commercial development's going to be over in the corridor. Unless some one-off like a law office or somebody wants to build over here. I think we all need to prepare ourselves to the idea that somebody may come along and fit within that use that Mr. Malcheski outlined, and those are permitted uses. They are, I think, soft uses, and I think it'd be good if folks looked at that and examined those use lists and realized that this property along Quail and up 608 and Ravenna is zoned quite mostly commercial. Now it's not heavy industry or anything like that, but I just say that because we know that from time to time people inquire about it. Denise, you asked about...
Let me just add to your commercial comments. Keep in mind, with regards to the property is only going to be valued at what the building value is. And so the piece of property, if it's a $50,000 value of acreage, and you build a residential home that's $500,000, or a commercial building that's $500,000, the same amount of taxes is going to be generated. The difference and the point I was making is, if it's inside, generally more commercial buildings are generally a little bit greater than single-family homes, so that there is some more property taxes generated. But if it's inside that corridor of the jet, well, it's a different ballgame. It is more like a city than in the township. And not only are you generating property taxes, but you're generating income taxes out of that revenue. And that is what, I guess, in a sense, defeats the Ponzi scheme of these neighborhoods that we have, that we don't have enough revenue to go ahead and cover for those streets as those streets deteriorate. If it's a long road, we're spending lots of money in Quail Hollow right now, so we're basically covering a square acre in concrete this summer in Quail Hollow.
Well, I would say that we've got earmarked over last year, this year, and next year, about $700,000 in road repairs in Quail Hollow. And I can assure you, I get emails and calls from people, and they say, I pay taxes, so my road should be this, that, or the other thing. I could take 20 years of taxes from all the houses on that street, those streets in Quail Hollow, and take the portion that goes to the road levy, and take out the amount that's used for snow plowing, salting, and everything else, and then divide that down into the, if you will, the buckets that revolve around road repair. 20 years of taxes for every house on that street would not ever cover that project in cost. That's the problem that communities have as it relates to why Paul calls it a Ponzi scheme, as it relates to roads in communities like Concord. You take new developments that come in, the increased revenues that are generated on those new streets and those new neighborhoods that you don't have to deal with for 20 years, and you take that money and you start fixing the old ones. The old houses, the old neighborhoods aren't generating enough revenue to pay for their own street repair. And so you're, in essence, stealing from Paul to pay Peter, and eventually, as with all Ponzi schemes, eventually there's no new investors, i.e. there's no new developments in roads, and that's what you see in places on the west side of Lake County, Wickliffe, Willowick, where they have to continually do higher and higher and higher road levies because they're built out, they have no new developments coming in, they have no new residential growth. At some point, Concord Township will face that. It's 20 years down the road, probably 25 years down the road, but mark my words, at some point, Concord Township will face that. Where there'll be no further, residential growth, will be old like those west side cities, and the revenue there to fix all the streets will not be able to be generated under the current taxing schemes that we have within the township. So that's one of the values of commercial development, in that it doesn't create a lot of residential roads and things of that nature, which are eventually future costs to the taxpayers of the township, which is why we put a big emphasis on commercial development, on maximizing what we have.
But it's also got to be in the right place sometimes. And I think,
Absolutely.
We're talking about this particular property here is talking about this transition. Is it right here or is it wrong here? The Spear property is different than across the street. I think the corners are different than in the middle of the road somewhere. That involves planning. That involves discussion. That talks about how the township has built out over the last 10 years, last 15 years, last 20 years.
Yeah. And I would say to Vanessa's point, I think that's what we attempted to accomplish back in 2009 with the Town Hall Commons, Town Hall Neighborhood Zoning.
Sure.
Sort of a blend. I do think that the Town Hall Neighborhood Zoning references residential use. It doesn't define it. It doesn't, and that's a problem.
Yeah.
That's a problem that's been identified through this process. So I would say, from that standpoint, again, because the classification is called Town Hall Neighborhood, which does reflect some level of potential residential use within a commercial zoning. I think the zoning commission should continue with their work sessions. I like having them on TV. I like having them public as opposed to a small committee sequestered off. And I would encourage folks to provide their comments and feedback to that working body. There is no timetable on what they're doing. So I would encourage that process to continue. Denise, you mentioned something about the ball fields. First of all, the cemetery, it's the Stickney family, is that right?
Yes.
Stickney family. I think there are 3 or 4 graves there. So it's not a big cemetery, but there's a family plot there that we were made aware of, and I think now we're all very well aware of.
Yeah, what does it date back to?
It's early mid 1800s, I believe. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So you also asked, and I'll answer real quick, your question on ball fields. We have instructed Frank, he is in the process of planning a second ball field over here by the existing ball field, and he's in the middle of that. We hope to actually get that constructed this year. In addition, we are getting ready to engage, now that we have a new administrator on board after a few months of suffering through me as administrator. Thank you for terminating me last meeting while I was gone, by the way.
Felt really good.
Such a
Felt
relief.
really good.
Such a relief.
Long time coming.
We're going to be looking at the recreational plan, and it's really going to revolve around this campus, but mostly the property that we own on the south side of Concord Hampden, where the soccer field is now, and the Red Barn Schoolhouse. We own 10 acres over there, and the township has slowly acquired all that land with the purpose of eventually someday, putting in recreational components. We've taken out a couple of the houses we've purchased. So we're going to get into that process starting this year in terms of, are we looking at maybe some tennis courts, maybe a second field, pickleball courts seem to be popular in Menor, another ball field, all that. So that's going to be a comprehensive look at how we can use that property. Janet, that comes right into your questions about the Spear property. I can't really comment about acquiring something that's, I think, under contract. But I would say the downside to that is if the township acquires it, it takes it off the tax rolls, which defeats the whole purpose of maximizing the commercially owned property and its tax benefits to the community. So that's a double-edged sword.
I'd add one other concern is that, the Metro Parks want to put a greenway through Quail.
That's right.
And maybe the park is different than a greenway, but we had a lot of angst with that project or potential project occurring, and so I guess I have some concern regarding the reaction to the greater Quail development with regards to a park there.
I like the idea of some more recreational facilities over in this area around Town Hall, as I just previously mentioned. I think it's a quality of life issue for the township. I would say as far as parks go, the township is already, 15% of the township is already owned by Metro Parks, which is by far and away the most of any community in the county. So I don't know that we need more parks per se, but maybe there's some recreational opportunities in this area that we can look at as part of that plan. I think I tackled everything. So anything else, Connie?
No, you have.
Award-winning Connie Luda.
Come on, you have tackled everything.
Okay.
I'd make a motion to approve the April financial statements.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And we need to set a public hearing for the tax budget.
Did Amy give us a preference on that?
Yes.
June 6th.
Yes, I think June 6th at 7:25, I believe.
6/6,
I'm okay with
but
June
not at
6th,
6. At
7:25.
7:25. Let the record reflect. There will be the annual tax budget hearing. Okay, that's set. Future meetings and announcements. May 9th, we have at 7 p.m. the BZA meeting right here at Town Hall. On May 16th, there is Concord Community Day update at 6 p.m. At 6:30, there's the trustee office hours, and at 7:30, there is a trustee meeting right in here in this very room on this very channel. Any other meetings or announcements that I'm missing?
No.
Okay.
sir.
Thank you.
Does anybody have anything else for this body or for the township?
No.
Michael, anything? No, I don't have anything, Mr. Chairman.
All right, very good.
Otherwise,
All
they'd have to bill for it.
right. I'm going to go ahead and adjourn this meeting. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Have a great evening. The weather has finally turned.